One of the crowning achievements of my short, miserable life is that when I was about 10 years old, I came second place in a Michael Jackson dancing competition at the Blackpool Tower in Blackpool. Now, that might not sound like much to you, but to me, it's a big deal. Because at the time, I really loved Michael Jackson. And secondly, it kind of taught me a lot about not overthinking things and just showing up, because that's what happened in that moment. They invited the kids up onto the stage and I just ran up there like a maniac, danced my little heart out and came second place. There's a lesson somewhere there about confidence, which is good because that's what this video is about. How you don't need more confidence, you don't need more healing, you don't need more anything, you just need to show up. Before we get conditioned by the world and we hypnotize ourselves with our own emotional stuff, most of us are pretty confident. Confident in the sense that we can just show up in our lives. If you don't believe me, look at kids, any kids that you know. They're not overthinking things. They're not wondering if they should do something, if they're allowed to do something, if it's right, if it's wrong, what they're gonna look like when they do it. They just show up and they do it, and then they move on to the next thing and the next thing. They don't really need confidence. They're not sitting around watching YouTube videos or Googling theories about how they can make themselves more confident. They just are. And actually, this is how we can be as adults, because we don't need more confidence. What we actually need is to just stop judging ourselves and where we actually are, so that we can accept wherever it is that we are and then do something with it. The problem isn't that you need more confidence, it's that you need to judge yourself less. If you're judging yourself, what happens is you have all this underlying shame, which makes you feel like you're not good enough and that you need to prove yourself somehow. And because you've got that shame, you project it out into the world around you, and it becomes a case of perception is projection. What you see in the world, or you imagine to be in the world, when you imagine yourself failing or looking stupid because you're not confident enough, it's just your judgment projected out and then reflected back at you, and it stops you taking action. And so the way to get more confidence is to stop worrying about confidence and to just start taking action wherever it is that you currently are right now. So I just jumped over this huge stream, which has boosted my confidence immensely, and I didn't think about it. It's just another reminder that you can just dive right in. When we caught up in the ego, we create this imaginary state of perfection somewhere down the line where we'll finally be ready. We'll be healed enough, we'll be confident enough, we'll be educated enough, we'll be skilled enough. Whatever it is, this imagined state of perfection is just the ego projected into the future. And actually what it ends up doing is creating a block between where we are right now, where we think we need to be, and how much we can show up in the present. If something is stopping you from being present, then it's stopping you showing up in your own life. And if you can't even show up in your own life because you're projecting forward, which is really a projection of that shame again, then you're never going to be able to take action without judging yourself. And this is why so many people feel like they need more confidence, more healing, more this, more that. It's because they're simply not ready to just be whatever it is that they are. Ironically, if they can let go of all that stuff and stop trying to be more confident or more healed or more whatever, then they'll find that they already have a very solid foundation on which to start building. And when they do start building, they'll see that confidence isn't something you can think yourself into. It's a muscle that grows over time the more that you use it. When we're waiting for this state of perfection to finally arrive, where we're perfectly healed, perfectly knowledgeable, perfectly ready, then we just end up detaching ourselves from all of the things that make us human. We detach from our imperfections, our fallibility, and our capacity to make mistakes and to overcome them and learn from them, and to inevitably make mistakes, because we definitely will, life really is just one big mistake after another, actually, and that's fine. But if you're waiting for this state of perfection to arise, you're never going to embrace that, and you're never going to put yourself in the process of making mistakes and then growing through and from them. Ultimately, if you're waiting for everything to be perfect, for yourself to be healed and all this, before you start taking action and growing in confidence through the process of just doing what you need to do, if you don't do that, then you're always going to be denying who you really are. And that's the problem. If you don't accept yourself as a human being, then you're never going to be able to grow, and you're always going to be stuck in your head instead of putting yourself in the process of living a real life. The actual truth of the matter is that nobody is ever 100% healed or 100% ready or 100% confident or 100% of anything, because we're all perfectly imperfect, as the saying goes, but also reality just keeps changing around us. And so even if by some miracle you did become 100% healed or 100% ready, reality was just going to shift around you, is just going to shift around you, and then you're going to have to learn again anyway, or you're going to have something new to heal or something new to work on or some new mistake to overcome. Reality keeps changing and we keep making mistakes, and confidence comes from understanding that and not beating ourselves up over it because of underlying shame and sometimes guilt and trauma. A good example of what I'm talking about is this YouTube video I'm making right now, or all the YouTube videos on my channel. I was not 100% confident when I started making these videos, and I wouldn't say I'm 100% confident now. I know that I'm going to make mistakes though, and I don't beat myself up when I do, because I can learn from them and keep bringing the energy that I need to bring to stay real. Sometimes in these videos I make mistakes with the lighting. I look like a proper ugly bastard. Other times I misspeak, and so when I watch the video back, I'm like, oh shit, I said this instead of that. And that's just how it goes. I'm a human being, I'm gonna make mistakes, but I'm not allowing that to stop me from showing up. And even though I'm just talking about a YouTube video right now, it's the same in life as a whole. That is just the process that we're all in always. We're constantly trying to find a state of perfection in a world where we will inevitably make mistakes. And if you don't accept that, then every time you do make a mistake, or you project forward and think that you're just going to make a bunch of them, then you're going to cringe at the very least and freeze up at the worst, and you're not going to show up and live your own life and do the things that you need to do. Luckily, not only do we make the mistakes, we can learn by doing. We can keep going deeper, and the deepest thing we can go into is our own realness, which means that whatever happens, we just use it as a springboard for learning more about who we are, more about what we want, and more about how we can show up and express something real in the world, even though we're going to make mistakes and not be 100% confident. One reason we can say that you don't need more confidence, and that there's not some magical way of thinking yourself into getting more of it, is because confidence is just a muscle, or like a muscle. You already have it, because wherever you are in life right now, you have enough to tap into that process of strengthening what you have and developing it, and not judging yourself for doing that. Confidence is a muscle, not something that you think yourself into, and the way that you train it is by taking action. If you want to be a baker and you want to get better at it and to become more confident, you need to bake some cakes or whatever. If you want to be more confident talking to people, then you need to talk to people more. If you want to write a book, then you have to write more and you'll be more confident that way. The point is, you can read all the books in the world, you can watch all the videos in the world, maybe you'll get a few little concepts that can refine the way that you act, but in general, you're not going to build any confidence whatsoever or tap into the confidence that's already there unless you take some kind of action. And that's why this is all about forgetting about getting more of something and just doing something with however much of whatever it is that you already have. This isn't about fake it until you make it. It's about accept what you have and then do something with it. Do your best and let go of the rest, i.e. do what you can and then don't judge the results, but learn from the results and then do some more and some more and some more until you become more of whatever it is that you're trying to be. If you want to be a baker, I don't know why I keep using this example of baking. I never really bake anything, although I bake bread sometimes, actually. But anyway, if you want to be a better baker, or more confident at being a baker, you don't just read a load of books, you bake a cake. But instead of thinking to yourself, oh my god, I'm gonna like bake the worst cake of all time, so you don't do it, or people are gonna judge my cakes, what you do, instead of pretending to be a good baker, which is fake it till you make it, you just bake a shit cake. And then you look at the shit cake and you taste the shit cake and you ask yourself why it's shit and how it ended up being shit. And then you go bake another cake that's a bit less shit. And every time you do that, maybe you have to eat a little shit, but you're gonna learn from that shit so that you can actually be more confident in the long run, and that you can put yourself in the process of learning by doing and not stopping yourself from being who you need to be by taking the actions that you need to take. The attitude that you need to cultivate to continuously grow into whatever it is that you're trying to be, which is hopefully something more real, is that you give yourself permission to learn by doing. When we're not confident, or we think we don't have enough confidence, we're caught up in that imaginary state of perfection, whatever that looks like, being more confident, more healed, and we think we have to get there before we can show up. When we shift to learning by doing, then we're just going to show up, do our best, let go of the rest, and then learn from whatever happens. And this makes it so much easier to forget about confidence and to just come from a place of acceptance where you can just show up no matter what. If you want to, for example, be more confident, being vulnerable and present with your partner, if you're in a relationship, you don't have to wait until you get to the state of being healed or confident enough to do it. You learn by doing. So you just try to be a bit more present, see how it goes. Maybe it'll take you deeper than you've ever been before. Maybe you'll mess it up and you'll say something stupid, make mistakes, because that's what human beings do. But as long as you don't judge yourself, you can learn from that and then just bring that energy of presence right back. Maybe you want to get better results in your business, if you have a business, or you want to show up in a more real way at work. You don't have to wait to be confident enough to do it. You don't have to wait for your skills to be perfected. You just have to bring the skills and energy that you've got, show up with it, not judge yourself, and then keep learning and refining, because you're learning by doing. It's really that simple. The hard part is not judging yourself and letting your shame and all your underlying emotional stuff cause you to freeze up so you don't show up, because you're waiting for that imaginary state of perfection before you can do anything at all. The problem for most of us who are struggling with confidence is that we can't allow ourselves to get involved or engaged in the process of learning by doing because we're outcome dependent. What that means is we set these goals for ourselves about how we are going to show up and be present, or how we are going to get more business, or how we are going to do this, or how we are going to do that. And we invest all of our self-worth into the outcome. And so then we freeze up because we think until we get that outcome, we're not good enough, or we don't deserve to be confident or whatever. And so we put so much pressure on ourselves to achieve this goal that we take ourselves out of the process of moving towards it with confidence and learning by doing, that we just we end up in sympathetic dominance, i.e. our nervous system is frazzled and we become so worked up by our own goals that we can't actually move towards them in a real way. What we need to do is learn to pay attention to our mind and all of the little gremlins that pop up, which are just past conditioning and an extension of our emotional stuff, shame, guilt and trauma. We need to pay attention to these gremlins in our mind that keep us focused on the goal and make us outcome dependent instead of focusing on the process. What that means is when that little voice in your head pops up saying that you're not good enough, or that you're gonna not be loved if you're not present enough with your partner, or that if you don't get clients it means you're useless, or whatever, you need to realize that that gremlin is not real, it's not you. You need to bash it, kick it into shape, and then shift your focus from the goal and from perfection and from confidence and being healed, or whatever it is, however this is showing up for you. And then you put yourself in the process. When you put yourself in the process instead of being obsessed with the goal and fixated on the goal, you become outcome independent. That doesn't mean, of course, that you don't need a goal. Goals are really important. It just means once you know what the goal is, you take your self-worth away from the goal and you shift all of your attention to the process. That's when you can learn by doing, and it's when you're going to stay confident and get more confident because you're actually moving with life instead of against it. When you're focused on the process instead of some imaginary event or state of being in your mind, which is always an extension of the ego, which is always a denial of who you are in reality, when you focus on the process like that, you're coming from a place of acceptance. Acceptance is the opposite of judgment. Judgment is the thing that causes us to hold back and hesitate and to think we need more confidence, more healing, more whatever before we get started. When we come from that place of acceptance, we're accepting who we are, all of our mistakes, infallibilities and imperfections, blah blah blah, but we're also accepting what life is, which is that it keeps moving and that we can work with it. And if we're here at point A and we want to get up here to point B, which is whatever our goal is, we need to stay engaged in that process of narrowing the gap between the two. And we can only do that if we're not frozen up thinking we need to be perfect or whatever before we can take action. And we just take the actions by responding to what's going on in reality and accepting the nature of things instead of thinking that they need to be something that they can never be, which is this perfect state where we can show up in a perfect way and we're completely confident and we're not going to make any mistakes and yada yada yada. That is a denial of who we are. It means we're not facing our shadow self, which is that we are broken in many ways, but those broken places are what make us real. And if we accept them, we can be part of reality instead of isolating ourselves in our mind and then never getting anywhere real because we're never taking the action. You don't need more confidence. You don't need to be perfectly healed. You don't need to be perfectly ready. You just need to accept whatever foundation you have to build on. And that just means simply accepting where you are. Sometimes that might suck in the short term. Maybe you have made mistakes. Maybe you're not where you think you should be at this stage in your life. Maybe you're not as skilled as you need to be. Whatever it is, whatever foundation you have though, is the only foundation you can build on. And so accepting it is how you start to put yourself in this process where you're going to be able to learn by doing. Because you know where you are, you're not judging it, which is always ego. And so you're not telling yourself that you need to be something you're not in order to be ready. You can start building right away. Acceptance just means that you're not hiding from yourself. You're not letting all those external judgments of the world hypnotize you and your relationship with yourself. You're just being honest about where you are, where you want to be. And you're not scared of being a human being that's going to make mistakes and that's going to fuck up sometimes and all that stuff. You're just accepting the rules of the game. And when you accept the rules of the game, you can start playing it. And the way to play is what I've been saying. Learn by doing. Figure out what you want, set the goal, but then take your attention off of the goal and put yourself in the process. That's how your confidence is going to come back and how you're going to stretch or train that confidence muscle. Not by thinking about it, not by fixating on what you want but what you don't have, but by actually doing something, taking the real action. That's how you grow, that's how you flow, and it's how you grow more real. So I really hope this video helped you. Confidence isn't something you can think yourself into. It's just about putting yourself in the flow of life again. But first, you have to accept where you are and who you're trying to become and what you personally need to do to close the gap. And then you need to start doing it. And the more you do it, the more that muscle is going to grow and the more real you're going to feel. If anyone wants to talk to me about any of this stuff, I can give you a free coaching session. There's a link here on my website. Other than that, I want you to stay real out there. Think about the small actions that you can take right now that are going to put you on that path to learning by doing. Have an amazing rest of the day wherever you are in the world, and peace to you. I just realized that I could have finished the video with a hilarious Michael Jackson reference. So I'll say once again, peace to you, but this time I'm gonna add ee-hee. Yeah.